Hey there, everyone. We're diving into something I know a lot of you are thinking about. Social media and kids.
Yeah, a really important topic.
It is. We're going to be unpacking a piece from ParentBible.com, how social media is making kids grow up too fast.
Hmm.
So published July 31st, 2024. Have you ever wondered, if all those hours on TikTok or Insta could actually be, pushing kids toward adulthood too fast?
It's a great question. And this article starts out with some pretty startling stats. It says that in 2022, 95% of 16 and 17-year-olds had social media accounts. But what's even more eye-opening is that some users are as young as 4 or 5.
I know, 4 or 5. It makes you wonder, what does childhood even mean anymore?
Right.
They're scrolling before they can even, tie their shoes. And then there's the fact that teenage girls spend, an average of
1.3 hours
5.3 hours a day on social media.
every day.
Every day, yeah.
Compared to boys, 4.4 hours.
So it's way more than just, keeping up with friends.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really becomes their main way to get information, to connect, even to figure out who they are. And that's where the article talking about, these influencers, it gets really interesting. Think about somebody like Selena Gomez, right? She has 426 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
So she's become this role model for a whole generation, but her online persona is, very carefully created. It could be setting some unrealistic expectations for kids.
Oh, totally. They even mentioned in here David Beckham's skincare routine.
Oh, yeah.
So it's even the guys are getting in on this whole perfect image thing.
Right.
And I know, I just remember being a teenager and feeling awkward enough without having a million flawless faces just staring back at me from my phone.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because it seems like these harmless things like makeup tutorials or, the perfect morning routine can actually make kids really anxious about how they look and getting older, and they're so young. We're talking about kids comparing themselves to these, airbrushed pictures and feeling bad about themselves before they even know who they are.
Yeah, and it's not even just about the looks, right? The article talks about how there's this shift from what we think of as traditional childhood play to mimicking adult behaviors.
Yeah.
So instead of building sandcastles, they're building online personas. It's almost like they're skipping over those years of carefree play and imagination and going straight into all the pressure of being an adult.
You're hitting on this concept of premature adultification, and the article really explores that, It's that idea that kids are missing out on that time to explore, to play freely, and they're getting burdened with all this anxiety and pressure that we used to think of as, adult problems.
It's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it? We're taking away the joy of just being a kid.
It is, and the article, it points out some of the darker parts of this trend, there's pressure for kids to do risky things like smoking or even dangerous activities just to get online street cred,
Yeah.
It's a whole new level of peer pressure.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of peer pressure, the part in the article about dangerous viral challenges, it was terrifying. They talk about things like the Tide Pod Challenge, the Skullbreaker Challenge. It's scary to think about how easily teenagers can get, pulled into these trends.
And this is where it's so important to understand how the teenage brain works. Their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that makes decisions and controls impulses, it doesn't fully develop until they're in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
So you've got this combination of, peer pressure and wanting to fit in, and a brain that's not really ready to think about the risks, not like an adult brain would.
I remember being a teenager, and honestly, I don't know if I could say I would have been able to, resist those challenges. It's a scary thought.
It is. And the article goes on to talk about the study from the National Library of Medicine that found a link between spending too much time on social media and all sorts of problems. Everything from, trouble sleeping and unhealthy eating habits to some serious mental health issues like anxiety, depression, even thoughts of suicide. We're not just talking about, feeling a little left out. These are serious, life-changing consequences.
And they gave some pretty specific numbers, too. 27.9% of the people in the study experienced depression, and over 22% had problems with their diet.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big reminder that we need to look beyond, just the fun side of social media and really think about the downsides.
Exactly. I thought the article's part on what they call Facebook depression was really interesting. It talks about how social media, even though it's supposed to connect us, can actually make you feel isolated and vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like this double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
The same platform that can connect you with people all over the world can also make you feel incredibly lonely and like you're not good enough.
Exactly. And the article points out that this feeling of isolation and vulnerability can lead teenagers to things like substance abuse and behavioral problems.
So it's a complex issue with a lot of far-reaching consequences. So, with all of this, what can we do? The good news is the article gives some practical advice for parents. They emphasize setting clear boundaries on how much kids can use social media, things like age-appropriate guidelines and time limits.
Those boundaries are so important, but the article goes even further. They suggest using parental control software,
Oh, yeah?
like apps like Circle and Bark. They can help parents see what their kids are doing online and add another layer of protection.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, especially for younger kids who might not be, mature enough to deal with all the complexities of the online world on their own.
Exactly. It's not about being Big Brother. It's about giving them a safety net while they're still learning how to think critically and be safe online.
Right.
But, and this is where the article makes a really good point, it's not enough to just set rules and install software.
Right.
We need to talk to our kids openly and honestly about what they're seeing and experiencing online.
Those conversations are key. We need to talk about those unrealistic portrayals, the dangers, and the importance of thinking critically about what they see online. We need to help them be smart about the information they consume and be responsible digital citizens.
You're exactly right. It's not about banning social media altogether. It's about giving kids the knowledge and skills they need to use it safely and in a healthy way. It's about helping them understand that their worth isn't based on how many likes they get or how perfect everyone seems online. It's about building their self-esteem based on who they really are and their connections in the real world.
It's about raising a generation who understand that true connection and happiness come from within, not from a carefully constructed online persona.
Exactly. It's about teaching them to value being genuine over being perfect, to accept their imperfections, and to find joy and fulfillment in the real world, not just online.
So, as you've been looking at this article, what has stood out to you as the most important takeaway?
What's really fascinating to me is how this article emphasizes that we need a holistic approach to this issue. It's not enough to just monitor screen time or block certain websites.
Right.
We need to create an environment where kids feel comfortable talking about their online experiences, where they understand the difference between real life and the carefully curated world they see online, and where they feel confident making healthy choices for themselves. It's a challenge that needs parents, teachers, and society as a whole to be involved.
It's like we're all in this together, figuring out how to raise kids in a world that's so connected.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that needs us to keep learning, keep adapting, and be willing to challenge our own ideas about what it means to be a child, a parent, and a responsible person online in the 21st century.
Yeah.
It really is uncharted territory. And this article from ParentBible.com, it really highlights the need for what they call media literacy.
Yeah, right.
It's not just about, protecting kids from the bad stuff online. It's about giving them the tools to actually think critically about everything they see.
Right, like giving them that inner BS detector so they're not just passively absorbing everything, but really like engaging with it and thinking about the message behind those perfect pictures and videos.
Exactly. And a big part of thinking critically is understanding, why was this content made? Who made it? What are they trying to do? Are they selling something? Do they have some kind of agenda? Those are the questions we need to be encouraging kids to ask.
It's funny you say encourage kids to ask, because I think a lot of adults could use that same advice,
Yeah.
We're all susceptible to those kind of like hidden messages and those carefully crafted stories.
That's so true. Media literacy is a skill you need your whole life, and it's something we should all be working on no matter how old we are.
And speaking of things we need to be aware of, the article talks about some pretty disturbing trends, like those dangerous viral challenges that have been popping up online. It's scary stuff.
It is, and this is where understanding how the teenage brain works is so important. Remember, we talked about the prefrontal cortex,
Yeah.
the part of the brain that helps us make decisions and control our impulses. Well, it doesn't fully develop until our mid-20s. So teenagers are naturally more likely to give in to peer pressure and do risky things.
It's like their brains are wired for new and exciting things, and social media just gives them a constant stream of that. But it also means they might not fully understand the consequences of their actions in this online world where everything can seem kind of removed from reality.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important for adults to step in, to give guidance, to set boundaries, to have those open conversations about the risks. It's not about being a killjoy. It's about protecting kids from harm and teaching them how to be responsible in the digital world.
Yeah. The article mentions some specific challenges, like the Tide Pod Challenge, where kids were eating laundry detergent pods, and the Skullbreaker Challenge, which could seriously hurt someone. It's wild. I mean, were we this easily influenced as teenagers?
It's tough to say, right? The social landscape was totally different back then, but it does show how powerful social influence is, especially for young people. They see their friends doing these things, and there's this huge pressure to fit in, to be part of the group. It's easy to see how someone might get caught up in the moment and not really think things through.
And it's not just about physical harm either. This article also talks about the psychological impact of social media. The pressure to look perfect online, constantly comparing yourself to others, the fear of missing out, it can be a lot for young minds to handle.
It is, and it's all pretty new, really. We're still figuring out the long-term effects of social media on developing brains. But we do know that it's important to be aware of the potential risks, to talk openly with kids about what they're seeing and going through online, and to give them the support and guidance they need to navigate this complex digital world.
We talk a lot about protecting kids from online predators and cyberbullying, which is super important. But I think we also need to talk more about this subtle, almost sneaky way that social media can affect their mental and emotional health. It's about fostering a healthy relationship with technology.
Totally. And that's something we as adults need to be modeling too. Being mindful of our own social media use, setting boundaries, making time for real world connections and activities. Kids are always watching us, so it's important that we're setting a good example.
You're so right. It's like that old saying, do as I say, not as I do. Doesn't really work, does it?
Right.
If we're always on our phones, scrolling through social media and not spending time with people face to face, kids are going to pick up on that.
For sure. It's about leading by example and creating a balanced approach to technology in our homes and communities.
So, bringing it back to the big picture, what are some concrete things parents can do to help their kids have a healthier relationship with social media? This ParentBible.com article offers some great advice.
It does. The first thing they talk about is setting clear boundaries around how much kids can use social media. That might mean limiting how much time they spend on screens, having no tech zones in the house, or setting aside time for family meals and activities where everyone puts their devices away. The key is to be consistent and get the kids involved in making the rules so they feel like they have a say.
Makes sense. It's about working together as a family, not just imposing rules from above, right?
Exactly. It's all about collaboration and communication. And building on that, another good tip from the article is to use parental control software. There are tons of apps and programs out there that can help parents see what their kids are doing online, set time limits, filter content, even keep track of where they are.
That sounds super helpful, especially for younger kids who might not have the maturity or judgment to be safe online by themselves. It's like having an extra set of eyes to make sure they're not seeing things they shouldn't or doing anything risky.
You got it. And again, it's not about spying on them. It's about giving them that extra layer of protection and guidance until they're old enough to make good choices on their own.
So it's about finding that balance between protecting them and giving them the freedom to explore. What else does the article recommend?
The most important thing they emphasize is open communication. We need to talk to our kids about what they're seeing and experiencing online. Ask them about their favorite apps and who they follow. Find out what they're watching and reading, and be ready to have some real conversations about the potential risks and dangers of the online world.
Yeah, those conversations are so important. We need to create a safe space where they feel comfortable sharing their worries and asking questions, even if it's about something that might seem embarrassing or off limits. It's about letting them know they can come to us without being judged or punished.
That's so important. We want our kids to trust us, to feel like they can talk to us about anything. And that trust comes from open communication and listening without judgment. But it's not just about talking to them, it's also about setting an example ourselves.
Right. Kids are really good at picking up on our habits and attitudes.
Mm.
If we're always on our phones, scrolling through social media and not paying attention to the people around us, they're going to learn that from us. It's about practicing what we preach.
Exactly. If we want our kids to have a healthy relationship with technology, we need to have one ourselves. Setting boundaries for our own social media use, making time for offline activities, putting real-world connections first. It all starts with us.
This ParentBible.com article really emphasizes how important it is to build kids' self-esteem based on who they really are, not on how many likes or followers they have.
That's a powerful point. In a world where everything seems to be measured in likes and shares, it's easy for kids to start believing that their worth is tied to how popular they are online.
And that can be a dangerous way of thinking, right?
It can, because social media often shows a distorted view of reality. It's all highlights, a collection of the best moments, the most flattering angles, the most amazing experiences.
It's like looking at everyone else's vacation photos and feeling like your own life is boring and dull in comparison.
Exactly. And that can make you feel inadequate, insecure, even depressed.
So how do we help our kids develop a strong sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on getting external validation, on likes and follows and all that?
It starts with us as parents and role models. It's about how we talk to our kids, how we treat them, how we show them we value them. It's about recognizing and celebrating their unique strengths and talents, even if those strengths and talents don't necessarily make them popular online.
It's about focusing on their character, their kindness, their compassion, their creativity, their resilience, all the things that make them special, no matter how many followers they have or how many likes they get.
Exactly. It's about helping them understand that their worth comes from within, not from what other people think. It's about nurturing their inner drive, their sense of purpose, their passion for life itself.
Because ultimately, those are the things that will really make them happy and fulfilled, both online and offline.
You're absolutely right. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. It's not just about protecting our kids from the bad stuff in the digital world. It's about empowering them to create a better digital world.
A world where kindness and compassion are more important than anything else, where being real is valued more than looking perfect, where true connection is more important than getting validation online.
A world where technology helps us be better humans, not the other way around.
It's a big goal, but it's one worth fighting for, right?
Absolutely. And it starts with each of us making conscious choices in our own lives, showing our kids those values, and working together to create a more positive and humane digital landscape.
It's about raising a generation that's not just smart about technology, but also smart about their hearts. A generation that knows how to use technology, but also understands its limits.
A generation that uses technology to connect, to create, to inspire, to make the world a better place.
So if we're putting all of this together, it seems like the main takeaway from this ParentBible.com article is that it's not about saying social media is all bad. It's about understanding its potential impact, both good and bad, and using that understanding to make smart choices about how we use it, how we parent in the digital age, and how we shape the future of our digital world.
You put it perfectly. It's about taking back control, both as individuals and as a society. It's about understanding that we have the power to shape technology, to use it for good, to create a digital world that reflects our values and meets our needs.
It's about being proactive, not reactive. It's about being intentional, not just going with the flow. It's about taking responsibility, not just for our own digital well-being, but for the well-being of our children and the future of our society.
You've nailed it. It's about empowerment, not fear. It's about hope, not despair. It's about believing that we can create a better future, both online and offline. And it starts with each of us, right here, right now.
I love that. So for everyone listening, what small step can you take today to encourage healthier tech habits, either in your own life or the lives of the young people you care about?
It could be as simple as putting your phone away during dinner, talking to your kids about their online experiences, or setting a time limit for social media use. Every little bit makes a difference.
It's about making progress, not being perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really empowering to realize that we're not just, standing by and watching this digital revolution happen. We can actually be a part of it, shape it to fit our values and what we want for the future.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were talking about before, that idea of digital citizenship. We can teach kids to not just be safe online, but to actually be forces for good.
Right.
It's not just about avoiding the bad stuff. It's about using their voices and influence to make a positive impact.
I love that. Instead of just trying to protect them from the online world, we're actually empowering them to make it better. What does that look like in practice, though? Like, what does being a good digital citizen actually mean?
Well, think about it this way. Just like we teach kids how to be responsible and respectful in their communities, their schools, their neighborhoods, we need to do the same for their online communities. It's about understanding that what they do online has real-world consequences. It's about teaching them to be critical of the information they're getting, realizing that not everything they see is true or unbiased. And it's about encouraging them to use their platforms to speak up for things they care about and to promote positive change.
So it's about raising a generation of, digital activists, engaged citizens who use technology to make their voices heard and create a more just and equal world.
Exactly. It's about helping them see the internet as more than just entertainment or a distraction. It's a powerful tool for connecting with others, working together, and making a real difference in the world. Imagine a generation of young people who go online with a sense of responsibility, empathy, and a real purpose. That's the kind of digital future I'd like to see.
That's a great vision, and I think it really speaks to young people. They are passionate about making a difference, about making the world better. And social media can give them a way to do that.
It can. But as we've been talking about, it can also be dangerous. Cyberbullying, unrealistic beauty standards, the pressure to seem perfect online, the possibility of addiction and mental health problems, these are all real risks. So how do we balance those risks with this idea of empowering digital citizens? How do we help them use their voices for good while also keeping them safe from the dark side of the online world?
Yeah, feels like walking a tightrope.
Right.
Encouraging them to participate, to be active, but also being aware of the very real dangers.
It's definitely a balancing act. And it requires ongoing conversation and support. We can't just give them a list of rules and expect them to figure it out on their own. We need to be talking to them honestly and openly about the good and the bad. We need to teach them how to protect themselves, but also how to use their voices effectively and responsibly. And we need to be there for them when they make mistakes, because they will. We all do. It's all about learning and growing together.
It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that we're all figuring this out together. And that's okay. The important thing is that we're talking about it, that we're willing to learn and adapt, and that we're supporting each other as we go.
Right. We need to create a culture where it's okay to talk about these things, where kids feel safe to come to us with their questions, their doubts, their worries, even if it's about something that seems embarrassing or taboo. Because if they don't feel like they can talk to us, they'll turn to their friends, or worse, to the internet for answers.
And that can be a dangerous path.
Yeah, it can. Because the internet, with all its good stuff, is also a place where there's a lot of misinformation, where people can take advantage of others, where it's easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others and feeling bad about yourself.
So how do we prepare our kids to navigate that?
It starts with building a strong foundation of trust and communication. It's about having those open and honest talks, not just about the risks, but about the opportunities too.
It's about teaching them to be critical thinkers, to question everything they see and hear, to check their sources, to recognize when someone's trying to push their own agenda.
Exactly. It's about giving them the skills to tell the difference between fact and fiction, truth and propaganda. And it's about helping them develop a healthy skepticism, not just about the things they see online, but about the messages they get from the media, from their friends, from even us as adults.
Because we all have our own biases,
You know?
our own opinions and agendas and things we don't see.
That's right. And it's important to admit that, to be humble, to admit when we're wrong, to be open to learning from others, even our kids.
So it's not just about teaching them, it's about learning with them. It's about going on this digital discovery journey together.
I like that. It's a journey that needs us to be always watching, adapting, and questioning what we think we know.
You know, it's interesting how this conversation keeps coming back to the importance of balance. The balance between protecting our kids and empowering them. The balance between the online world and the real world. The balance between what we need as individuals and what's good for our community.
Balance is key. It's about finding that sweet spot where technology makes our lives better without taking over, where we can connect with others without losing ourselves, where we can enjoy the benefits of the digital world without sacrificing our well-being or our values.
In this ParentBible.com article, they talk about the importance of boosting kids' self-esteem based on their own unique qualities, not on how many likes or followers they have.
That is so important. In a world where everything seems to be measured in likes and shares, it's easy for kids to start thinking that their worth is tied to how popular they are online.
And that's a slippery slope.
It is. Because social media often presents this distorted view of reality. It's all about highlights, a carefully curated collection of the best moments, the most flattering angles, the most enviable experiences.
It's like looking at everyone else's vacation photos and feeling like your own life is dull and boring by comparison.
Exactly. And that can make people feel inadequate, insecure, even depressed.
So how can we help our kids develop a healthy sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on getting external validation, on likes and follows and all of that?
It starts with us as parents and role models. It's about how we talk to our kids, how we treat them, how we value them. It's about recognizing and celebrating their unique strengths and talents, even if those strengths and talents don't necessarily translate into online popularity.
It's about focusing on their character, their kindness, their compassion, their creativity, their resilience, all the things that make them truly special, regardless of how many followers they have or how many likes they get.
Absolutely. It's about helping them understand that their worth comes from within, not from what other people think. It's about nurturing their internal drive, their sense of purpose, their passion for life itself.
Because those are the things that will truly sustain them, bring them genuine happiness and fulfillment, both online and offline.
You're so right. And that brings us back to the bigger picture. It's not just about protecting our kids from the negative aspects of the digital world. It's about empowering them to create a better digital world.
A world where kindness and compassion prevail, where authenticity is valued over artificiality, where real connection trumps online validation.
A world where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
It's a big dream, but I think it's worth striving for.
I agree. And it starts with each of us making conscious choices in our own lives, showing our kids those values, and working together to create a more positive and humane digital world.
It's about raising a generation that's not just tech-savvy, but also heart-smart. A generation that understands the power of technology, but also recognizes its limitations.
A generation that uses technology to connect, to create, to inspire, to make a real difference in the world.
So if we're bringing all this together, it seems like the main point of this ParentBible.com article is that it's not about saying social media is all bad. It's about understanding how it can affect us, both positively and negatively, and using that understanding to make smart choices about how we use it, how we parent in the digital age, and how we shape the future of our digital world.
I love how you put that. It's about taking back control, both as individuals and as a society. It's about understanding that we have the power to shape technology, to use it for good, to create a digital world that reflects our values and meets our needs.
It's about being proactive, not reactive. It's about being intentional, not passive. It's about taking responsibility, not just for our own digital well-being, but for the well-being of our children and the future of our society.
You said it perfectly. It's about empowerment, not fear. It's about hope, not despair. It's about believing that we can create a better future, both online and offline. And it all starts with each of us, right here, right now.
I love that. So, to wrap things up, for everyone listening, what's one small change you can make today to encourage healthier tech habits, either in your own life or in the lives of the young people you care about?
It could be as simple as putting your phone away during dinner, talking to your kids about what they're doing online, or setting a time limit for social media use. Every little bit helps.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time. And don't forget to check out our website for more resources on this topic.